This is Mitch, and welcome to the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. I'm here with Brad Smotherman, and he's an owner financier. Where are you from, Brad?
Based out of Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I go there all the time. I like to write with the big boys when they allow me to sit at the table. I've been doing it. I've been writing songs for 40 years. Hardly anybody knows that, and I'm going to get good at it like any day now. But that's my hobby. But I'm here with Brad Smotherman. He's from Nashville, Tennessee, and he's an owner financier. So I thought it would be great to maybe have a conversation without knowing. I don't know how he does what he does, and he doesn't know how I do what I do. So I thought it'd be a good time to compare notes, two guys using the same strategy, and see the differences between the two strategies. Not because one should or would be better than the other. It's just he's been doing it for a long time. He's been successful. I've been doing it for 22 years. I've been successful with mine. So let's just see the two different ways, what they have in common or what the differences are. Okay, so I think this is going to be a great conversation. I gotta though pay homage to my sponsor here. So please, you guys go visit taxfreefuture.com. If you do not have a tax deferred or tax-free account or that you're growing your financial statement in or growing your retirement in, then man, you are missing out on a huge leg up. Being able to invest or to postpone taxes inevitably or for decades and use that money to grow makes a big difference. Go to taxfreefuture.com because you will not believe what your financial advisors are not telling you. And believe me, they're not telling you, and we're going to tell you. All right, Brad, give us, I read your bio, and you come from a strong farming agricultural background. At one day, though, and I like how you put it, you decided as much respect, and I do too have respect for the farmers and the ranchers of this country. They have some of the toughest jobs ever. They take some of the biggest chances ever. They're the hardest working, some of the most integral people I've ever met. I own a ranch myself, and if it's not for the people around me, because I was a gentleman rancher, meaning I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just owned it. They came and helped me and taught me more about the land and more about how God works this planet than anybody I ever knew. And they're tough people. And for the most part, I could trust every handshake in that county when they came from that industry, you know?
Sure.
And, but one day you said you decided not to base your life on clearing thistles and praying for rain. And I get it 100% because that's a lot of stress when you're dry farming or you have to have the rain. You went out and got your real estate license in your teens, no?
Well, I was licensed when I was 18. So I started the class when I was 17 and got licensed when I was 18.
Okay. Same here. I dropped it. When I was 18, I looked like I was 12. No, which worked out kind of good when I was in my 40s, but I'm 60 today, or pretty close. And people just didn't want to buy a house from a guy that looked like he was 12 years old, and probably coupled by, I probably wasn't the sharpest tool in the drawer, and probably, I certainly didn't have any experience. So I had a really hard time with that, and I ended up just letting my license. I parked it for a long time, and then after I got into investing, I let it go. But you had your license, and then what did you say? In the first 6 months, you made like $1,900 or something, and then you got hooked up with a builder and started learning how to pre-sell new homes. Is that right?
Correct. That's right.
And then you started making some money, and and if I got your bio right, that's when you saw this other mindset and this other way of living, and it first became apparent to you that there's this whole different lifestyle out there that you wanted. Is that right?
Yeah, that's 100% right. You know, I saw him as a builder developer, and half the time he was swimming in his pool. So he had people building the houses. He certainly wasn't an excavator, so he had an excavation company go out and do the next section, and he did extremely well. I mean, we sold a lot of pre-sale construction, a lot of custom homes, and this was above median prices in my area. So I was making a full-time income, basically working weekends while I went through college.
Oh, so you went to college. Where did you graduate from?
Middle Tennessee State. I got an undergraduate degree in accounting.
Okay. I graduated from La Calle AU. That means the street in Spanish. The most expensive education on the planet.
That's right.
Yeah, I can think of $800,000 that it cost me so far in my career by not by not getting educated the right way. All right, so what happened that the light bulb went off that you wanted to buy houses yourself?
Well, I thought that real estate was an asset class that I might be able to be successful in. So I'd always heard that real estate had made more millionaires than any other asset class. And I didn't really have a whole lot of belief in myself. So I thought, well, let's go into something where maybe I have a higher chance of being successful than something else. Well, I mean, I've always been somewhat of an entrepreneur. So I started a little pressure washing company when I was 16. So I was pressure washing houses, and I worked at a local grocery store through high school, and it ended up being that the pressure washing company was doing better than I was, pushing carts in, the parking lot. And so I focused more on that, and then I got my real estate license, and so it was really just having. I had to find something that I thought maybe I could do, and I had a math teacher in 8th grade who had quit teaching after 25 years to sell real estate. And he had done it part-time while I was one of his students. My grandfather had passed away. I was raised by my grandparents. My grandfather had passed away when I was 14. And so Mr. Patterson, he really was that strong male role model that I needed during that time. And so I called him when I was 17 years old and said, hey, I'd like to get my real estate license. What do you think about this? And he said, well, yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a great thing. And once I moved on to the builder developer side, I saw more about investment, and I knew that was a direction that I wanted to go, but I just wasn't sure where. So I did a lot of research, and back then, this was before Bigger Pockets had really blown up. There was flippinghomes.com, and they had a forum. It was Steve Cook, Sean McCluskey, David Alexander, a lot of those guys. And so that's really where I began to get filled with information and knowledge on the real estate investing side.
I used to participate in Bigger Pockets earlier. Have you ever seen my posts on there?
I'm sure I have, but I don't
recall. There was a guy, when I got off of it relatively quick, there was a guy there that had like 18 billion posts, and he would get on there and tell me that I was doing owner financing was illegal, and he kept going on, and it finally pissed me off so bad. I said, you know what? Screw this I don't know, this platform, as much as I was helping or trying to help people on that thing, I just couldn't put up with that asshole. And so anyways, I jumped off of it. But there's a lot of good people on there, and it's a great venue. I don't know, some guy owner financing is one of the most misunderstood businesses, and you'll have real estate agents and attorneys, and apparently some guy named Bill on Bigger Pockets tell you that you're doing everything illegal and that it's not illegal, that it's illegal, and it's not.
Well, it's funny to me because, and what you just said is the exact reason why I don't like those big platforms, is you can ask any normal question and you're going to get 10 different answers, and probably 9 of them are wrong. So there's not a lot of value there when you're looking for concise information.
Yeah, I told that, I use that analogy all the time. You can go to 10 lawyers and get 10 different answers. The question is, who's on board, who has a reasonable reason to believe that you can get done what you want to done, and that they're willing to defend you under this case law or this or whatever. And really don't make the mistake of talking to, just because a guy has an attorney doesn't mean he knows everything about everything. If he's not a deep dive down in the middle, surrounded by a real estate everyday guy, he's not going to know how to talk to you about Dodd-Frank or anything else. You know what I mean? What your state statutes require or anything. Dodd-Frank's federal, and state statutes, of course, are state laws or regulations. And it was really tough, to kind of put together the right team. I say it was tough. It took me a little while to find the right guys who I thought had the right answers for the right reasons. And
sure.
Because, the last thing I want to do is go into this business and hurt somebody or hurt myself or end up in jail or anything else, So I spent a lot of time. A lot of people almost got out of owner financing when Dodd-Frank came around, because it was a lot of legalese and 2,500 pages or something like that. And I tried to read the first 5 pages and just said it's useless. It might as well be in French. I don't speak French.
Sure.
But it's all about delegation, right? So you start handing out things and figure out who can explain this to you and figure it out. But tell me about your. Well, we don't think we answered the question. What was the light bulb that said that you wanted to buy houses yourself? I mean, when was it?
I mean, so I retired my license in 2010 just to do investment. And so whenever I got on flippinghomes.com in that forum, it really built my belief up because I saw other people in other markets that were doing things. And my first mentor was David Alexander, and he was the one that really turned me on to owner financing. And I was always attracted to the idea of notes. And I thought, well, gosh, how wonderful to have this promise to pay that you don't have vacancy and repair like a rental attached to it. And so it was really that getting into that forum, and I spent just countless hours there learning what I could learn. And it was at that point like, okay, we have to do this.
Good for you, man. So did you read it? There was really not any books on it. The best books I read were like Nothing Down by Robert Allen, and could try to help me figure out how to function while I was dead broke. Are you like me? Everyone you ever knew that got into this business started out broke? Do you know any people that started out rich?
I don't know personally of anybody that started out rich. And, it's kind of an amazing thing because I now mentor people. I had a couple guys over my house yesterday for a cookout, and, these guys are professional guys, very capable, but they don't have I'm guessing a ton of cash. I mean, they have some assets to work with, but when I started, man, my first closing, I think I had $300 in the bank, so it's not like I started with a lot. My credit was extended because my wife and I had just bought our own personal residence. So I actually went to the bank after I'd made 3 or 4 payments and said, hey, I'm going to be this big investor guy. I'd like some more capital. And they said, well, Brad, we're happy to lend to you another $140,000 as soon as you pay the $140,000 that you just borrowed off.
No problem. Let me get that handled this week.
Yeah, it's like, well, that doesn't put me in a very great position to go out and buy houses. But luckily I found another way, and David was a great mentor, and instilled confidence in me that I could go out there and do this business. And so we started going out and making things happen.
So let's talk about your strategy, and then let's see how our two strategies compared, because I really don't know your strategy. Let's take us through like a case study of the average owner finance. And by the way, you did your first deal, you made $19,000, which you said might as well have been 19 million because you had like no money in the bank, and it was
that's right.
It was like a ship coming by while you're floating in the middle of the ocean and giving you hope that you're actually going to pull yourself out of this. So let's go through a case scenario. How is your owner finance strategy working? You're buying somehow, and then you're selling with owner financing, correct?
Correct. So
right,
we can just kind of go through a deal if you want.
Go ahead.
We can just kind of go through a deal if you like.
Yeah, let's do a case study, yeah.
All right. So we put this one under contract yesterday. So there was $78,000 owed on this property. And this one's kind of a crazy one because it's at a 3.75% fixed rate. Okay.
Wow.
So $78,000 is owed. This house is going into foreclosure in approximately 2 weeks.
How many years left on that loan?
26. Okay. So we bought the property. We're giving our sellers $1,000 to walk. So we bought the property for $79,000. Okay. Now we have a contract to buy. Okay. So in our contract to buy, it states specifically that we have the ability to market the house, and that any profit, whether a cash trade or note, is assigned to us in the event of an assignment of contract. Okay. So now we turn around and we market with owner financing. So we're going to market this for $125,000, and we'll probably get, just say safely $10,000 down. Okay. My average is 25, but we'll say 10 on this one. So we'll have a $115,000 note wrapped around a $78,000 first in that transaction. So I'm not sure the cash flow because I haven't run it.
Okay, so hold on. So your acquisition price is 79. What was your sales price?
125.
Okay, and you're doing a sub two.
Correct. So we're buying that $78,000 mortgage subject to.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay. So we'll have a $115,000 note in second position. That's all inclusive of the $78,000 first. So we'll have however much note equity that is, roughly close to $40,000 in note equity in that transaction. And so that $40,000 note equity position throws off cash flow per month. And because we're going to be selling at $115,000, that second will be at 7%. Okay. And so we'll make as much money on this roughly as the bank does. So, with that position, it's a very safe and secure position for us, and a good transaction that I think everybody should do.
Okay. So you're carrying the 115 at what percent?
Usually we do 7.9. This one is an area where it's a little bit more rules. So sometimes we'll have to move the rate down a little bit. But, if there's a 3.75% underlying, I don't mind doing 7%.
And for 30 years or how long?
Yeah, 30 years, fully amortized. We do fixed rates. There's no balloon. There's no prepayment penalty.
All right. So I guess to round it out, we just need to figure out the difference in what your payment is on that 3.75% loan?
Not off the top of my head. I just know the rate.
Okay. Well, let's just take a second to figure it out. Why don't you figure out, do you have a mortgage calculator close, and I'll figure out one side, you figure out the other side?
Let me see if I can find
I can do it fast enough here. It won't take me long. But because I think it's important to see the cash flow here generated with $1,000 and the upfront cash that you kept. Did you spend any of that $10,000 fixing up the place, or did you sell it as is?
No, we're selling as is.
All right. I love it. Okay, so your payment's like $530. The principal and interest, will you write that down, $530? I got it right here, $530.
Okay.
You'll have to continue in messages.
I'm sorry. That's $115,000 at I put seven. No, sorry, I got it all wrong here.
Okay.
One more time. I don't want to talk to you about this. Siri, be quiet. That's wrong.
So the 115.
You said 7% or 7.9?
Well, we're going to do 7 this one. So it looks like 765 on the wrap. Does that look like it's about right for you?
Yeah, 765. I'm sorry. I mixed up the interest rates wrong. Yeah, 765. And then on and you're paying, I don't know what the original balance was on this 78,000 at
right.
3.75%. But let's just figure it was an $82,000 loan. Okay, I'm just adding $4,000. You think that's fair?
No, I think so.
So let's say it's 82,000 at 3.75. 82,000 loan amount, 3.75% for 30 years.
Correct.
Oh yeah, I forgot to hit the done button. Yeah, 380. So 380, 765 minus 380. You're making more than the bank's making by $5. In this roundabout scenario, and you did that with $1,000. Put $9,000 in your pocket when you took the $10,000 down payment. So you actually made $9,000 on this transaction up front to create a $385 positive cash flow for 26 years. And then for the last 4 years, you get to keep the whole 765 if the loan ever made it that far, which we both know it probably won't. But
correct.
Rural might, who knows, but not likely. Average note in America, I heard, lasts about 7.5 to 8 years. What have you heard?
I see that a vast majority of my paper is either going to default or pay off in 5. So now I'm pretty much running schedules for 5 years. And, if it goes longer, then great, because on most of the transactions, I don't want to be paid off.
I don't want to be paid off either. Okay. So let's, where are you getting your money? No, you did the sub 2. So do you only do sub 2s? Is that the only thing you do? Or do you ever do owner finance sales when you, other than sub 2s?
Yeah, we do both. So I would say a vast majority of ours are subject to wrap. So we're taking over payments on an underlying and then selling owner financing. Maybe 20% of my business will be free and clear property where we get true owner financing from the seller, but we always is a big word. 90% of the time we get 0% financing on that. So with that, we can actually buy for market rates, and the amortization makes a difference on our equity position. So
yeah, and also, so you're also making sure in your contract, I'm sure 99% of the time that loan is wrappable or assumable or whatever. Or do you even do the substitution of collateral clause when you get those kind of great loans?
A lot of the times we're getting the loan on a promissory note. So there's actually no secure position for the lender, but I do sign those personally. So I don't like the idea of signing those to a corporation, and then I do sign those personally. So I want the people to feel secure in that. But if people don't feel really good about that, and guys, a lot of people I know out there are thinking, because you have a lot of viewers are thinking, well, why would someone do that? Like, why would they do that? Guys, I've had attorneys do that. Okay. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that someone is not astute that they do something like that. But the first thing that I want is to have the deal secured by promissory note. If someone's uncomfortable with that, then we're going to do a substitution of collateral clause in the note and deed of trust. So, people are generally okay with that. And don't mention interest. If you mention interest, then, they're going to want interest. But in most of our cases, we're not paying interest on our owner finances. And those are effectively like free houses. So we just bought Triplex last week. And can I run through the numbers on this one?
Sure. But can I back up? So when he says don't mention interest, I'm talking to maybe the newer people out there. You just say, look, you want $100,000 for your house, and you want $5,000 down, so you want $95,000. Then you just divide $95,000 by 180 months or 240 months, and say, is 20 years at X per month okay with you? Is that good? And if they say yes, you got an interest-free loan because you just took the balance and divided it by a number of months. Okay. Well, if you start, like he said, if you mention interest rate, then people are going to want interest. If you just name a number that they're happy to get per month, if they're happy to get that amount per month, then there doesn't need to be any interest rate. So let's just do an example. You take 95,000 and divide it by 20 years, which is 240 months. Is $395 a month good? If they say no, they need 450, then just divide the 95,000 by $450 per month and tell them, okay, I'll give you $450 a month for 211 years. That's a 0% loan. It's a great tactic. It works often in my career as well as Brad's. So, and if someone ever says, well, that's a zero interest loan, then your reply needs to be immediate. You need to rehearse it in the mirror, but it needs to be fast. In my humble opinion, say, well, I'm willing to pay a fair interest rate. I mean, the banks are charging 1.5 or 2. I mean, I even pay a little more than fair. Like what do you think's fair? And I set the bar down at 1.5 or 2%. So when they name a number, maybe it's like 4 or 3 or something. So.
Yeah. So one thing that I'll say there, and this is a little trick that we do, is if someone wants interest, we start adding payments to the end of the loan. So if we're talking about a 20-year term and then they get another 3 years of payments, then the present value of that interest payment is like exceptionally low. Yeah. So I would recommend, start adding payments to the end as opposed to giving a rate overall.
Oh, that's brilliant. And I never heard that before. And hats off to you. That's why I like to do this show. I just learned something myself. And that's a great day for me because I'm always looking for that. When does Mitch Stephen get to pick up a nugget? That's really smart. So what are you saying? You just add another 10 payments to the back end and say, I'm willing to pay you interest. What if I pay you 10 payments of $450 at the end? Well, when you divide that over the whole course of the loan, it's fractions of a percent, right?
Correct. That's right. So, I mean, it's still effectively an interest-free loan. And in many cases, we would have paid more for the house anyway. But our negotiation structure is very strong.
Wow. Very impressive. Nice. Okay. So you're going to talk to us about a triplex that you did.
Yeah. So we bought this one last week, and this is a great example of a 0% owner finance loan. So this guy paid $80,000 for this property, free and clear. He paid cash 5 years ago. So I contracted to buy it for $85,000. and it's probably worth 120,000 or so. So I mean, it's an okay deal from an equity perspective on price, but it's not amazing. So I mean, would I be just really excited to buy a $125,000 house for 80? Not really. Okay, but how we're paying this 85,000 is we're paying 25,000 at close, and then we're paying 500 per month until paid. Well, the fun part about this one is the triplex is rented already at $1,800 a month gross. So he's trading $1,800 per month in gross rental income for $500 per month in note. That's a stated amount, you know? So, and I'm not.
That was a zero interest loan at $500 a month?
Correct.
How many months?
Until paid. So however long that amortizes out.
Let's just figure it out real quick so people know. So 85,000 divided by 500.
Well, it's 85 minus 25 and then divided by point. So it's 120 months. So we're putting 25K down. So we'll finance 60.
Oh, 25K down. I missed that part. Okay.
Yeah. 500 per month until paid.
It's like a 62% rate of return.
It's not bad.
Okay. So all I did was tell me if I did this right. I did it fast, and I'm not, and I'm living proof that you don't have to be a mathematician to have this business work for you very well. You put down 25K, so that's your investment. The formula is your annual income divided by your investment equals your cash on cash rate of return. So I took it brings in $1,800 a month, but you got to pay out $500, so you're collecting $1,300 a month times 12. Came up with a number. And then I divided it by 25,000. I came up with 62.5% rate of return. So,
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Do that stuff all day long, huh?
Well, the way that I look at it is we're putting 25K up to effectively buy the property free and clear because it's going to pay itself off. You know, even after vacancy and repair, it would have to have some hellacious repairs and vacancy to not clear 500 per month over time, you know. So we're paying 25K effectively for the property and going to get paid, you know, monthly on top of that to do so. So, I mean, I was really happy with that one. And I think it's one of the few that I will keep as a rental because I can't push the value up high enough to capture the same amount of net rental income if I convert it to owner financing. So we'll see. I may get in there for a little while and decide I'd rather just owner finance it out. But for now, I think we're going to hold it.
Yeah, I like the way you think, man. You're pretty smart for a farmer. You know that?
Well, you have a lot of time to think when you're cutting thistle.
I said that with all the love in my heart. Do you okay? So.
I understand.
So I think one of the things that you're really good at is making every scenario work. You know what I mean? Because not every deal, almost every deal is uniquely different. You know, some people think they're all just kind of standard deals, or we might say typical deals, but there's never really a typical deal because A, every property is unique. B, every seller is unique. C, every buyer is unique. And D, there's a lot of multiple things that can happen on any given situation. You have choices of which way you want to go, you know? And you need to pick the one that fits you or your plan at the time or your resources at the time. So let's compare what I do, and let's just see if there's any differences that stand out for you. So I'll take a house that I can buy like for 50. I'm just using these numbers because I know the numbers roundabout. Yep. 50,000. I always borrow at least 2,000 extra, so I borrow 52. I have $14 million worth of private money that I've raised over my 24-year career. And most of my people were in their late 70s or early 80s, just seemed to turn out that way. So I was borrowing the money at 5 years interest only at 8%. 5 years at 8% interest only. I'm starting to change that to amortize these things for 5, 6, 7 years, but I'll explain to you how I gave people different options and I kind of let them pick what they're comfortable with, and then I just deal with the money as such. But in this case, I always borrow an extra $2,000, And because it's private money, there's no hassle doing that. They don't care, they don't mind, and it's hardly over leveraging when I tell you the rest of the story. So I borrow 52. Let's say my payment's $350 a month. Okay, principal and interest, more or less, give or take a couple. I owner finance the house for 100. I really shoot for 10% down. I average 12% down, but let's just say in this hit at 100, 10% down is 10,000. So I get 10,000 down, and I finance the 90,000 at 10% to 10.5%, depending on what the weekly allowable rate is for me by RMLO. And so let's just say the payment's $850 coming in. So I got a non-recourse, interest-only 5-year note for at 8%, collateral-only loan, and I'm paying out $350, and I'm collecting $850 on a 30-year fixed mortgage to my buyer. So I'm clearing $500 per month. I average in my career clearing $535 per month per deal. And there's a bit of a train wreck coming there because I still have to do an extra step because I got a 5-year interest only loan that I have to pay back in 5 years, and I've sold it on a 30-year fixed note. If you're interested in all the ways out of this, because I don't think we have time, nor do you want to hear me explain it all right here, but go to 1000houses.com, scroll down the page, find my blog post, and search for the article, Why I Borrow at the Terms I Do. But just like all this business, I'm always learning, advancing, morphing, learning every day, and more importantly, believing every day that more and more is possible. So today I offer 6%, 8%, 9%, or 10%. Which one do you want? The first 6% is if you offer a 6% is if you offer 5-year amortized loan, and you only loan 50% or less of what I can owner finance the house for. Okay, because if you're only in 50% or less, and I do have those homes where you're only in 40% or 45%, or maybe I'm looking for a loan for 55%, but if you're willing to loan 50, I'll put in the 5 myself to buy the 2 points off. You know what I mean? Because the next level is 8%. So I offer 6% if you loan 50% or less, 5-year amortized. And I'm moving from interest only because I'd like to take that extra step that I have to do when I have interest only loans. I'd like to erase that step because that step is just another step. And if I can fix it up front, I don't have that step to take. Like I said, there's a lot of ways out of it. And you can see it at that blog post, Why I Borrow at the Terms I Do. Mostly I did it because my elderly people were deathly afraid of spending their principal. If I sent them a principal and interest payment, then every month, they would have to figure out how much was principal. They'd have to take that back down and put in their savings account, and it was too much for an old person.
Understood.
So I just sent interest only where they could just say, hey, I get that $700 check every month. I can spend it all because there's no principal in it. That was my thinking. Now, not having amortizing loans hurt me a bit, and plus I had to go through these other steps. But the worst case scenario is if I had to give that thing back after 5 years, I would have made about $40,000. I made $30,000 in cash flow. I'd have made $10,000 in the down payment. And then I had a collateral only loan and I have to give it up to my lender. Now I know if I give up that to my lender, they aren't going to loan me anymore because they didn't want a house. They're in their 80s, for God's sake. They don't want a house. And I've never given up a house in my career. But the worst case scenario, if I had to, under the terms and conditions that I borrowed, was I would have to give up the house at that point. And that's not a rotten plan to make $40,000 in 5 years on zero money down. I actually borrowed an extra $2,000 because it takes me about $2,000 to find this guy that wants to sell me this house at half off. Okay. So I always borrow an extra $2,000 because I do about 100 houses a year. And if I leave $2,000 in every house, that means I leave $200,000 a year in a house. And in 5 years, that's $1 million. No one has $1 million to leave laying around in a house over a 5-year period. Okay.
Right.
So the next choice is 8%. 8% is a fully 6 or 7 year amortized loan. it evens out. Doesn't matter to me which one you pick, really. But you have to borrow 51% to 65% of what I can sell. You have to loan me 51% to 65% of what I can owner finance the house for. I call it the OFV, the owner finance value. Maybe one of the only things I ever coined in my life. I think I coined.
I like that very much. I'm gonna have to
you
use
have
that.
the ARV, the Mayo, and now there's the OFV.
Right.
And I never let my lenders in over 65% of the OFV, of the owner finance value. And I do go into a little bit of an explanation to them that the owner finance value is a value unto itself. It has nothing to do with comps. It has to do with what the rents are. I'm trying to get this guy that's paying $1,000 rent in the neighborhood to have $1,000 PITIS payment. PITIS, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and possibly servicing fee if I can fit it in, of $35 a month. So that's not too complicated. I mean, 6 to 8, it just matters whether you loan less than 50% or less, or 50% or more, never in over 65%. Then there becomes the 9% and the 10% choices. At 9%, I want a 10-year fully amortized loan. All of these loans are non-recourse, because the worst case scenario, you're going to be in $65,000, you're going to loan me on a $100,000 house. That is a very protected, pretty safe position to be in a first lien, right? I average 58% LTV, okay? So while the most I will go is 65, most of my investors on average are only loaning me $58,000 on a $100,000 house. That's a 42% cushion. Prices of houses would have to decline by, the owner finance value would have to decline by 42% before they had exactly in it what it was worth. That's a strong, strong position. So the 9% jumps up to, and I learned this, the millennials or the people that are getting in young with their 401ks and their IRAs and are learning how to self-direct, they got all the time in the world on their hand. They don't want to be in and out. They're not worried. See, the old people were like, I'm not going to live 10, 15 years. I want to be able to get now, so they wanted shorter term, and I didn't like that. But especially when you're growing, shorter amortizations put a crimp in your cash flow when you're trying to get financially free. So, but then I started finding there are these younger people out there that have nothing but time before they're 59 and a half. They're in their 20s, their 30s. They got decades to go. And they're like, I just want to put it in and forget it. And send the payment there, and I don't care, principal, interest, whatever. And when it gets up enough, I'm going to buy another. I'm going to loan you some more. And so I said, okay, I'll give you 9% if you give me a 10-year fully amortized loan. Fully amortized, non-recourse, collateral only. And people started biting on that just because I gave them the choice. You can go to the Toyota shop and you can get a Corolla, or you can go over to the Lexus. It's still made by Toyota, and they'll charge you $120,000 or $180,000 for the Lexus. I just put out the choices. What do you want? Some people want to make more. When I offer the 6 or 8%, I like that. It doesn't matter to me which one they pick. They're all winners in my book. You want 6%? Great. You want to be conservative? I'll appease your conservatism. We'll get you in something that's really padded. You want to be more aggressive? Let me show you how you can get 9 to 10%. Give me a 10-year fully amortized loan. Or you want 10%? Give me a 15-year AM with a 10-year balloon. I'll probably run it 15-year AM first. If they decline it, I would say, all right, how about 15-year AM with a 10-year balloon? And so I started letting people tell me what they wanted to do, and I just started giving the choices. I don't care which one. And that's my plan. And so I'm using none of my money. I don't have to do subject twos. I know how to do subject twos. But these people also, I forgot to, in the terms of their loan to me, they also give me the right to wrap this mortgage in writing. It's part of their loan to me. It's in there. So I have permission that there's no due on sale clause. It eliminates some consternation over what could happen. And so I don't think we're that far apart, but the art of this, Brad, was the art of raising private money. I mean, the way to find these people that are interested to have this conversation. Not everybody who has the conversation with me says yes, but enough of them had said yes. And the coolest thing is once they get 6, 8, 9, 10 months, a year's worth of payments, they're real easy to refer grandma or grandpa or mom or dad or their uncle or their brother they're really on board with it, and it starts to kind of snowball. But that's my way. I don't think our way's that different, you know?
Yeah, I think that it's pretty similar. So to talk about subject to, the reason that I like subject twos is the rates that we're getting right now on these underlyings is exceptionally low. And I don't think that that's going away anytime soon. And so, I mean, a lot of times we're wrapping 4% money. I've got one in Atlanta, Georgia that's set to close here in a couple of weeks where we have 140 at 4.25, and I've sold it at 250 at, I think 6.99. And so it's just amazing that we have all of this really cheap money that we can wrap. I think the only difference on the free and clear properties is where you're putting someone first position in a private money position. I'm actually selling partials. So if a note is 360 payments, for those of you who don't know, I can sell off a group of payments on the front end, say it's, 2 years or 5 years or however many years that payment is, to get a free and clear what's called a tail, or the tail end of payments on the back end of that loan. So it's just a different position there. But I'm 100% with you when it comes to securing our people, because if someone's going to trust me with running some of their cash, I've never had a private lender lose money. And if I have a private lender that loses money, it's because I've gone broke too. And I don't think that's going to happen, but that's how I feel about it. So, I mean, even though, yes, you're not personally signing for these loans, I'm sure that if push comes to shove, like you'd move somebody's collateral to a different position or whatever it had to be to make sure that people are made whole. And, that's part of what I do too.
I've never filed bankruptcy. I've never filed Chapter 13. I never filed Chapter anything. I've never missed a loan. I've never been foreclosed on, and I don't intend to. But I deal in big margins because big things can happen. People go, man, you have really huge margins. I said, well, you don't understand some of the risks I take. I've learned to mitigate them very well. Maybe I've lost on 5 houses in the last 20 years, to a grand total of maybe $80,000 divided by 5. But thank God they all didn't happen in the same week. But then again, it wouldn't have mattered. If something goes wrong on my side of the equation, I just fix it. I just pay for it. I write it, check, or I don't care. But my private lender is never going to hear about my problems. It'll never happen.
Right.
I had a house burnt down one time without insurance. My doctor called me and said, what happens if one of your houses burns down? I said, well, one of your houses already has burned down. And he's like, which one? I said, well, I don't remember the address. It was like 12 years ago, Really? You didn't tell me? Why didn't you tell me? And I said, well, it's none of your business, He said, well, how much was it? I said, I do remember that. It was $38,000. The people that got foreclosed on moved in next door as renters, and they set the house on fire that night, and they beat my insurance policy. And,
wow.
They went to jail for arson. But anyways, he said, so you lost $38,000? I said, no, the lot was worth $25,000. So I lost, $13,000. And, I was short $13,000. I wrote a check for it. And, you don't loan me your money to hear my BS. You know what I mean? You just want to get paid. That's all. So that's good. It's fine.
Yeah. And it's amazing the things that can happen. I had somebody try to burn one of my houses down, and they didn't succeed. I had a girl get raped in one of my houses that was in rehab once. So you run into all kinds of things.
Of course, that was all your fault. They tried to sue you, right?
No, I never heard anything about it. I mean, the house was boarded up, as well as it could be, and, somewhat secure, but if somebody wants in a house, they're going to find a way to get in.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a terrible situation, but
call the cost of doing business. That's just something you got to deal with. Washers and dryers and freezers and stoves. If I had, $10 for every one of them that was missing out of my house, window units, I'd be a millionaire all over again. So you said one thing in your prep sheet here for me. I think you're right. I think owner financing is going to be more and more prevalent and more profitable and more understood in the next 10 years than it has been the previous 10 years. Because I think, I started in 1996 owner financing houses, actually buying the house, selling the house on payments, and then selling the note in like a triple closing, my first 450 deals in a row. And then finally, when associates closed, I'm kind of a slow learner, Brad. Associates finally closed, and I couldn't sell my notes anymore it just dried up for like 5 years. I had to keep my notes, and all of a sudden that light bulb went off. I was like, why the hell did I ever sell a note? But
Well,
there's
back then they had institutional note buyers, right? So I
yeah,
mean, people
they were paying
they would
80.
pay par value.
Yeah, they were paying 83% to 87%, which was cheaper than the closing costs on a traditional loan even. And sometimes they would even pay par if they were seasoned enough. But I was doing it all on a pristine note. I was selling the note in the 10 minutes after I created it and using the note buyer's money to buy the house.
Right.
That doesn't work anymore. I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's dried up. But that's why I say you keep morphing, right? You keep morphing. But let's talk about this for a second. Doing the fix and flips is a one-time cash. Doing the owner financing is temporary cash. I learned pretty quick that you had to move your money into some kind of ever cash play, or you'd look up one day, no matter how many notes you had, 200, 300, 400, however many notes you had, you'd look up one day and you wouldn't have any notes left because they're going to pay you off. Now you'd have a bundle of cash over there and a big tax bill, but you wouldn't have any income anymore unless you went back to work. So I chosen to eliminate that, and I take all my the wealth that I build through one-time cash strategies and temporary cash strategies, i.e. the note business, and I buy self-storage locations. I buy boat and mini storages because I live around a lake. I started out buying boat storages where people would back their boat into basically a garage, shut the door, and you couldn't see it, from the outside. I just built all these boxes with doors, and they'd put their boats in them and close the doors. And then I started doing self-storage because they asked me for that. And then there was a need for covered parking and open parking and on and on and on and on. So I now have 14 storage locations around this lake where I live, and 1,600 doors, and they average $100 a month per door. And that's my forever play. I will collect, that's rent, and I will collect that rent until the day I die. And it's also where I get my depreciation, because as an owner financier, right, we lose depreciation.
Right.
We got to get into something to mitigate our taxes. So are you doing something for an forever play yet?
So yes and no. So, I mean, part of it is whenever we're getting PI payments in a first position lien, then they are a depreciating asset. So with that, then we have to take the principal amount and put it back into something which we can do in stock, or we can do in whatever asset that you want. But we have to secure that position, otherwise we're losing net worth, right? But the cool thing about wraps is they appreciate. So on the wrap side, we're really not concerned about that. I mean, the cash flow payment is the cash flow payment, and I'm sure that there's a scenario in which a wrap would depreciate if the underlying rate was higher than the wrap, but in almost all situations, that doesn't happen. So
what are you saying the wrap appreciates? I mean, you don't own the property anymore when you sell it, so the appreciation is, help me understand.
Yeah, so wraps appreciate because, like in the example that we did at the beginning of the segment, there's 26 years remaining on the first, but I just wrapped it with a 30-year loan. So the principal payment is paying down faster the first position lien than the wrap. So where I wrapped it and on day one, say I had $40,000 in note equity, in year 5 I may have 47 or 50.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I've never heard it put like that before. So your wrap is appreciating because you're paying off faster than your buyer's paying off.
Correct. That's right. That's right. So, we don't really look at those in terms of being an issue. I mean, the thing is, Mitch, we're creating so much in note equity that I don't think it's really going to make a difference long-term, but I have looked at different commercial assets. I looked at mobile home parks, which, I just personally just don't have interest in. I think self-storage is really cool, but my concern there is, I'm in a very, very quickly developing area in Middle Tennessee. So, we're having places where, a self-storage building has been up for 10 years and all of a sudden there's a new one. And it seems to me like the competition might be kind of an issue. I don't know, because I don't know that business. But, at some point, I'm definitely going to have to trade up into some kind of bigger commercial asset, whether multifamily or self-storage or, whatever that is that interests me at some point, just to bury the cash, and at that point, it's not about getting the yield. It's just about not losing the principal, so I'm sure at some point in the next 5 to 10 years that I'll start seriously looking at that.
Yeah, I strongly suggest that that you take a hard look at storages. They're great. They have no sheetrock, no carpet, no hot water heaters. There's a lot less resistance. Like anytime you're trying to push someone out of a home, there's kids, and where are we going to sleep tonight? That's a high pressure point. You know what I mean? There could be a lot of resistance to that. So apartments and homes, I tried it for a while. The bottom line is a lot more elusive because a lot more things can happen in a residence. So, things can go wrong, break, get tore up. Storage pretty hard. Pretty hard to mess it up. And when it's time for them to go, they realize the same thing that I've realized for 22 years. It's just a bunch of junk and it ain't worth anything. And they'll walk real easy. You know what I mean? Outside of a sentimental things, which by the way, they'll go take out before they walk, or anything of real value. All this stuff of storage wars and finding billion-dollar assets inside these storages is all mostly a bunch of crap.
The second Mona Lisa in a storage building.
Yeah. I have wrongful disposal insurance because I was told to have it, and that was a good idea, and it didn't cost that much, and I'm glad I did because I told some guy to, get rid of Unit 12, and he dyslexed it and got rid of Unit 21, and of course everything in that storage now was worth $1 million. The record collection was worth $1 million. There was a Rolex in there, and there was a $20,000 diamond ring. And by the way, this one that he disposed of had a dirt floor and chicken wire dividers because it really wasn't a self-storage. It was a boat storage that someone didn't tell me and put all their stuff in. And
So are your units in like a more of a metro area, or are they more rural?
Well, I started out way rural because I couldn't play. In 1991, I bought 13 boat storages in front of a state park that had 2 boat launches, and I bought it for $8,000, and I got the rents to right off the bat to let's just say $50 a unit, $4,000 eight storages, $50 a unit a month, Yeah. And so $400 a month on $8,000 or $4,800 a year. And that's when I figure out everything by accident pretty much, Brad. I don't really calculate, I just go through life. And I think my friend, my late friend, started Home Investors.
Mm-hmm.
I have this horrible thing blacking out on names. Damn.
Is it Dev?
Oh, I just black out on names. It's like a mental block I have. If I don't want to think of his name here in a second, I'll get it. But anyways, he told me that an entrepreneur rarely ends up with the business that he starts out with. We're always morphing to the path of least resistance to the most money. And that's generally not the business we start. And we just start to get our eyes open by being in a certain business to the possibilities of what's going on out there and where the loopholes are and where the gaps are in the businesses that we can take advantage of. I think that's true of a lot of people. You may have a lot of things that you think that Home Investors was doing, but he didn't make his money what you think that he did. So,
oh, is that right?
Yeah, not even remotely close what you think. And so I've always been kind of open like that. When I saw the storages and I was comparing my rent houses to the storages, first of all, a man may lose his house, but he ain't losing his boat. Okay, I don't care. little country humor there, but the point is now these boats are $50,000 and $80,000 and $100,000. You know what I mean? These boats cost a lot of money, and they usually have a balance owed to a bank, and a bank will make up any back payment so they can get to their collateral asset and repossess the asset. And to do that, they got to settle with me before they can get in. So,
I never thought about that. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I actually like the boat storages more than the self storage because the contents in the self storage worth nothing. To me, 99% of the time. And even if there is something in there that's worth something, I don't have the time to sort through it and take everything to the trash and then find the one Rolex watch or the Rolex watch band that's worth, $4,000 or $5,000. I don't have time for that, and I'm not going to do that. It's not my business. That's a completely different business, and there's people out there that work that business. I just want to get the unit cleared and rent it out again. The reason why I have self-storage is because I wanted to be diversified and offer a lot of different kinds of spaces: climate control, non-climate control, dirt floor for boats, concrete for boats, roll-up doors solid where the dust can't blow in, and Other ones cheaper where, the dust can blow right under the rolling door, and then, bigger units, smaller units, open parking, covered parking. So I was trying to diversify within an industry so that I wasn't overloaded in any one supply.
Let me ask you this, because you know the note business and you also know commercial assets. And I see very, very few people that have both. So in my market, a decent multifamily or a decent storage building, I mean, they're selling at like 4, 5, and 6 cap rates.
Yeah.
So being a note guy and creating the yields that we can create, at what point does that kind of yield make sense? Or is it just like these institutional investors that they're just burying cash and they don't really care? They're just trying to preserve assets.
Well, I don't buy those. I go out rural. I find where I think where the city's growing to. I send out a letter to all the mom and pops out there. I'm looking for people that are half full or not pushing the rents as much as they could, because maybe they don't know social media, and that's why they're half full. So you could get an 80-year-old guy that's owned the place for 30 years who's half full. His places may even be obsolete, some of the sizes, because now they have these, almost all the boat stalls I bought 15 years ago went functionally obsolescent because the boats got taller with those big racks, and the trucks got longer, and the trailers got longer, and the boats got longer, and they got taller. And pretty soon they wouldn't even fit in my 8x8 by 25 anymore. But I still had the land, and I just would go tear them down and convert to what I needed. And I would know exactly what I needed because I'd be getting the calls. Also looking for pieces that had extra land where you could expand. Okay. Expansion is really cool because when you have that place and you're taking calls for a year or half, 6 months or whatever, you know exactly what to build because you're getting the calls and having to say, no, I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that. So you're building right to your calls. The other way to do it is just to buy a piece of land that you can steal or that's not worth a lot, like a flag piece where all the stuff on the highway is expensive, or you buy it on the highway, you sell the highway frontage, you get your little flag to the back, and where the land's less valuable, and you try to pay off that land by selling the frontage, and then you want some kind of presence at the road, but you only need a little piece, the building where the manager lives and the sign, and then but the storages are down on the junk land or the not so expensive land,
right?
And you try to pay for it with the frontage, so you end up maybe with 2 or 3 or 4 acres like free and clear, and then you would build, like let's just say it was a rectangle or square, but you could build some covered parking, some non-climate controlled, some climate controlled, and some open parking. And you just did one row of each, and you just built as you were told what you needed more of, back behind them. Like there's all these rows, you had all these, here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one. If you get more calls for this one, you just build another row of that one. Leave these alone.
Right.
And it helps you not have to come up with a crap load of money at the beginning. You kind of build to suit what you need, and you making money and saving money. And as the need comes up, you go put it in instead of like doing a whole big old master plan with $2.4 million, which is what I'm doing right now. I have 3 of them going. Dealing with the city, water retention, sprinkler system.
Oh my gosh!
I mean? So I went rural. And I went rural, and there's ways to operate them remotely, although it'd be better if you could concentrate in at least an area where you could have a central manager that could watch over things while you're not. You know what I mean? But
well, that makes sense. I may be talking to you about that because I run across things I don't know. Great deals just seem to chase me down, and so I'm sure that we'll run across something.
That's funny. That's funny. The people that work the hardest always seem to get the luckiest.
How about that?
Hey, take my phone number. You ready? You got a pen?
Yeah.
210-669-4020. And call me anytime, or text me your contact information while you're at it.
I will.
I'd love to talk to you about it. I think you're, for whatever it's worth, coming from this dumbass, I think you're a brilliant guy. I'm just listening to the way you talk, the way you look at things. The fact that you even brought up partials is way over most people's heads. It took me years to figure out partials. You've done it. How old are you?
32.
Oh, I hate people like you. I friggin' hate people like you. 32. I didn't find my ass with both hands until I was 36. I'm 58 now, so I did it all like a 22-year period. Pretty much, maybe 34 when I started, but you know, my friends Eddie Speed and those guys, and he's been telling me about partials. And when the light bulb finally went off, and he told me about when I finally understood the concept of partials, because I was in the realm where I needed it at that time, and now I could receive it. You know, I wasn't. You know, I called Eddie and I was all excited. I said, "Man, I should be doing like partials." He says, "I've been trying to tell you that for 10 years."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But the student wasn't ready, right? So the teacher was there, but he couldn't penetrate me because I wasn't ready to understand the concept. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, seem to be way spongier. You know, you're picking it up fast. I have a lot of bruises, my friend. A lot of bruises.
Well, you know, it really helps to have great mentors, you know, and I don't know anybody that traveled anywhere worth going by themselves.
Yeah, someone called me a self-made man the other day, and what they meant was I wasn't given anything, or I didn't have a silver spoon. My family didn't have money. But I really argued with the idea of self-made, because there was 100 people around me that made the difference of whether I made it or not.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know? Even in some of the most tiniest ways, but the really important ways. One, I had a great mom and dad. I knew I was never going to sleep in the rain. I knew that. If I could make my way, I would never sleep in the rain. I would never go hungry. But maybe just knowing that allowed me to take some chances that maybe I wouldn't have taken if I didn't have that net. You know what I mean?
Well, and mindset is so important in what we do. I mean, the life of the entrepreneur is kind of a lonely life, and it can be stressful, and you can deal with fear and those kinds of things. And so, you know, having the right mindset and a positive mental attitude to begin with is so important.
You know, this is a personal question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but my wife was not an entrepreneur, and she was not on board with me for the longest time, and it was very stressful. I wrote a lot about it in my book, My Life in a Thousand Houses, Failing Forward to Financial Freedom. I had a tragedy happen. I didn't know I was starting to catalog my life. It ended up being a book, but I never intended to write one. But I was really honest about what was going on in my life, because to me, I was just journaling to myself.
Right.
And I put it out there, and come to find out, a lot of people have a lot of those different kinds of struggles. But was your wife always been on board with what you did, or did you have to kind of prove yourself along the way to her pretty quick?
You know, I was really blessed that when we were dating, that I was running this model home. And so she saw that if we had a date at 6 p.m. and somebody walked into the model home to look at a house at 5:55, that the date just got moved to 8:30, you know. She believes in me more than I believe in myself, because whenever I first got into this business, see, the crash had happened in 2008. And so my builder developer went bankrupt. I ended up saying, well, you know, I've got this accounting degree. Maybe I should go into this and get my CPA, which was the plan at some point. And so I went into tax for about 30 days, and I had this boss at a local firm here in Nashville, and he had this real Napoleon complex. So, you know, the tax return could be correct, but because this piece of paper was supposed to be on top of this piece of paper in the file, I mean, he would just get unglued. And I was telling my wife about this, and I was trying not to complain, because it really hurt my feelings to have to go and do that anyway, because I felt like I could do better. And she was like, quit, just quit. And I was like, but it's the worst economy in 100 years. The real estate market's gone to hell. You know, we would be living off of your kindergarten teacher salary. She's like, you'll figure it out, quit. And so maybe 3 or 4 days later, I did. And so she supported us for roughly 6 months until I could get some sales back in the pipeline. And I'm just super blessed in that side. And I mean, I have friends where, you know, their spouse is kind of disparaging against the business. And that I see how tough that is for them to deal with.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I was super blessed on that, man.
You know, even after I was doing quite well, my wife didn't understand not having a job, where the check was going to come from. You know, I would say, look, I just put more money in the bank this month than you made all year. I don't understand, you know, but
yeah,
definitely there, you know, people raised a certain way or set in a certain way of looking at the world. It's hard to change that sometimes, you know, I mean, she eventually came around, but I call it hush money, Brad. Hush money. I had to put some hush money in the bank. So I sold a couple of notes. I just put it right over there in her bank account, put her name on it. About 40 at the time, I think she made $36,000 a year. And we put 40,000, I put $40,000 in the bank, and I said, look, can you hush up now, please?
And I have a lot of friends that their wife or their husband couldn't deal with. On the rehab side, especially, I mean, you can have like $100,000 or $200,000 in cash, and then 5 or 6 days later, you're tapping a credit line because, I mean, that's how fast the cash can go out. And that's one reason why I really love the note business is it's that steady cash flow that continually goes up as you're adding notes to the portfolio. But they had to move the money to a different bank to get away from the spouse.
Right. The greatest strategy in the world, I think, in the owner finance thing, and I think you'll agree because I think what I hear you're doing just that is the buy it, don't fix it, owner finance it for enough, you know, in my case, at least 35% more up to 50 or 60% more, but buy it, don't fix it, owner finance it to the guy who wants to make payments and fix it, and watch as the guy making payments to you goes over budget, rehabbing your collateral. That's the greatest plan on the planet. It saves time, it saves risk, it improves your position almost daily, you know, if the guy's really making improvements to your collateral. So buy it, don't fix it, and owner finance it for a nice profit margin, and watch the guy making payments to you go over budget instead of you going over budget in a remodel. Watch him go over budget, fixing up the collateral and making your deal with him stronger and stronger and stronger with every dollar and with every repair they make to that house. And by owner financing, we can sell houses with a hole in the roof the size of a dining room table. That would never fly in a new loan situation. They're not going to pass, the house won't pass inspection. We are the inspectors, and the buyer, you know, can buy what he's comfortable with, and we can sell it to him. We can sell him the house and the hole, you know, and finance both of them.
I literally had a house, Mitch, where on the marketing, I had to say on the marketing, if it's raining today, you're going to have to take your umbrella inside the house. There was the roof was like just disintegrating, you know, and there's water pouring in on all places. And I think I bought that house for $2,000 cash, and I sold it for $25,000 with $5,000 down. So it's like owner financing will sell houses.
All right, my friend. Well, I think we've done a good job here today. We could probably talk for now until the end of next month, but I think we've done a good job. Now, anything you want to say to the new investor out there that's looking to maybe get in the business or maybe just started the business?
So the one thing that I'll say is, and we kind of touched on it, I really think that the next 10 years, owner financing is going to have a better effect on the market than the previous 10. So the previous 10, we went from in 2010, the depths of the recession, prices were low, very few people had equity, to now, you know, there's all of this 3 and 4 and 5% money that we can wrap. Okay. And with the market going into more of a stabilization, and maybe prices are declining in some markets, we're going to be able to buy assets cheaper in the coming market with better terms. And then we'll be able to owner finance these houses to a bigger buyer pool, because whenever there's a down play in the market, banks tighten. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. We're going to be able to capture the asset cheaper and with better terms and sell it to a bigger buyer pool. I'm really excited about the coming.
So let's do this. You have a podcast. Your podcast is called
Investor Creator.
Investor Creator. Why don't you have, if I may ask or invite myself, can I be on your podcast and let's talk about why owner financing strategy may be recession proof? I would never say that this business is recession proof positively, because that's a huge statement, but I would say if there's such thing as a recession proof business, I think what you and I are doing with the owner financing is recession proof. And I'll give you all the reasons why I think, and we can tap in and
I would love that very much. Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Let's make that the topic. And I'll make a note to Julie when she calls you to set that up or whatever, that we're going to talk about, you know, the possibility that owner finance strategy is recession proof. I know what it did for me in the last recession, which was I think damn near a depression, if not a depression. By some people categorize it as a depression. So it was very deep and very bad. And I boomed like crazy. And we'll discuss how and why the natural laws of finance in consumers and all that, why it works the way it does. My banker didn't believe me. And, he's from Harvard and I'm from nowhere. I didn't go to college. And he kept telling me I was wrong. I said, no, I'm not. Watch what's happening. I was buying a house a day in the recession and selling them for more than I'd ever sold them for. So
yeah, it was perfect, and it's coming back. I don't think it'll be that bad, but as we continue to decline, owner financing gets better.
Look, my friend, I got to go. I'm late for my next recording. I had 2 back-to-back, and we've gone a little bit over. This is Mitch Stephen with the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. I want to thank every single one of y'all for stopping by to get you some Brad Smotherman, and we're going to have another talk soon. Please go to taxfreefuture.com. Watch the 37 videos there on how you can start a retirement plan and defer your taxes for decades, depending, or not pay any. You will not believe what your financial advisors are not telling you. So this is Mitch Stephen. Be sure to check out Brad's podcast, Investor Creator. And we're out of here, man. Thank you so much, Brad, for taking the time to be on.
Thank you, Mitch. Enjoyed it.